I think we cried for 3 days. Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Daya De Winters. I'm a romance author and sometimes I write horror on the side. And this is my first video of 2020. So whenever you're viewing this, Happy New Year and best wishes to you in this new decade and new year. What I'm going to be doing today is talking about the What Book Baby tag, which was originated by the novel Nana, whose channel I will post down below in the description box. So without further ado, let me jump to What Book Baby. Now I'm going to be looking at my phone, so if I'm looking down, I'm looking up. It's not that I'm ignoring you, it's just I have to check my notes. So the first I don't question or requirement is a childhood book that I still own. I own a lot of my old childhood books, some of which are here behind me, and some of which are at my mother's house. So the childhood book that I still own is called A Wrinkle in Time. And it's a coming-of-age / time travel book about a girl, Meg Murray, who travels to another dimension to rescue her father, who was doing time travel experiments, and he got caught somewhere in the universe. And so she has to use all her wits and a couple of friends, as well as her brother, in order to rescue him. It's a really good book. It's very good for children and adults, and if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend that you read it. That's one of my favorite childhood books, along with The Chronicles of Narnia, which I also still own, but I chose A Wrinkle in Time because that's like a book and not a series. Also, I still have Little House on the Prairie, but you know, I'm trying to stick to one, but it's books. You can't really pick one. They're like Lay's potato chips or Pringles, Lay's. I don't know. All right, the next requirement is a little golden book that I still remember. So, like I said, I have tons of books, had tons of books from my childhood, got tons of books here. There's more books in the basement of this house. And the little golden book that I remember is The Aristocats, which, if my memory serves me correctly, is a Disney film about talking cats who are rich, I guess. Aristocats, I just remember the book. I don't remember the movie, but I just remember the book, the little golden book with the hardcover and the little golden spine, and it was the Aristocats, and I think it was like peach or pink or something, and one of the cats was like a kid cat, and I think she had a purple bow. She was white with a purple bow on her head. That's all, and the father was brown with a white chest. And I think the mother cat was very refined. That's basically all I remember about the book. But next requirement is a book that I hated the ending to. Well, I would have to say that would be Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. Oh, it's a very well-written book. It is a good book, but it really tears at your heartstrings. That book is just... and it makes you angry. It makes you angry, but it's still a pretty good book. But I hated the ending, even though I knew that it probably could not have turned out any other way. It didn't make me like the ending any better, but I understand why the ending was done as it was done. Another book that I hated the ending to was Flowers for Algernon. That book, if you're not familiar with that, I think everybody's pretty much familiar with Of Mice and Men with Lenny and George. But Flowers for Algernon was about a low IQ fellow who was given this experiment, and he became very smart, and he knew everything, and he was the smartest person like on the planet in this whole big thing. And if you haven't read it, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but let's just say, just like Mice and Men, I understood why the ending had to be that way, but doesn't mean I had to like it. So, Of Mice and Men and Flowers for Algernon. The next one is a book that I wish had a sequel. That would actually be 1984, because I would really like to find out if anybody else in that dystopia was able to escape Big Brother, or were there other rebels around, or were Julia and, what's the dude's name? Oh, I forgot the guy's name. If Julie and Winston, that's who it was. If Julie and Winston were the only ones who rebelled against the Big Brother. Also, it's been a while since I read the book, so I'm not sure if they mentioned any other rebels, but just to see somebody else's story that maybe is not necessarily a quote unquote romantic story where they supposedly fell in love, but maybe like kids or other groups of teenagers who tried to rebel against Big Brother. I think that would actually make a very interesting sequel. Not that the book necessarily needs a sequel. I understand that it is what it is, but it'd be interesting to see a sequel nonetheless. The next one is A Book That Made You Cry. Well, my goodness. I remember in third grade that my mother read my sister and me Charlotte's Web. And it was great, wonderful book. Wilbur was saved, but at the end, Charlotte died. I think we cried for 3 days. And I think my mother was upset that she had upset us so much. But, I mean, you're in third grade. How much experience do you have with death on an average basis? And this was basically our first brush of death with a beloved character in the book. Now, of course, now looking back, you understand that Charlotte, her children, they went on the next generation of love, and Wilbur was going to kick the bucket sooner or later, as well as half those animals on the farm. I was really, thinking about that goose, how long she was going to last. But the circle of life goes on. But let me tell you, that Charlotte's Web devastated me as a third grader. Another book that made me cry was The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. And I believe I want to say that's by Carson McCullers. She wrote a lot of quote unquote like Southern books, and they're all like trash. I think she also did A Member of the Wedding. But if I'm wrong about the author, I certainly will put it in the description or put it in the video. Oh, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter is about a hearing impaired gentleman and his relationships with the people in the town. And I don't remember the book, and I really don't wish to reread the book, but I remember how sad it was at the end, because he was still lonely at the end, and a lot of the people who he connected with were also alienated and lonely, and it was very sad how the humans just couldn't come together and help each other. Oh, another book that made me cry. Well, there's a whole list. The dog books, Sounder, Old Yeller, Where the Red Fern Grows. Ugh, all those books. I didn't read Old Yeller. I heard about it, and I knew better. And I don't think I read Where the Red Fern Grows. I think Sounder was enough for me to turn me off of reading books. I hate reading books when the dog is doomed at the end. And I think we saw the movie Old Yeller and cried for 4 days. So I always check. There's actually a website. It's called Does the Dog Die? That I always check before I watch these movies, so I'm not, taken by surprise that the dog gets knocked out in the show, because I can't take that. I don't know why. I don't like it. I don't like animals being killed or in books or in movies. Yeah, it's the circle of life, but I mean, there's a whole bunch of dog books where dogs are getting knocked off left and right. Why? How many spiders get knocked off in fiction? Just Charlotte, right? But how many dogs? There's a whole list of dogs who die in literature, and I think it needs to stop. I really think it needs to stop. But anyway, also the last one is Sadako and the Thousand Paper Cranes. I read this with my 4th grade class, and we were all boo-hooing at the end. If you don't know the story, I'll give you the blurb. Sadako is a Japanese girl who got leukemia. And the legend is, in Japan, if you're able to fold 1,000 paper cranes, your dream will come true. So she starts folding these cranes, and she dies from leukemia before she's ever able to complete her cranes. So that was very sad. I mean, you kind of knew she was going to die because the 1,000 paper cranes, and you knew that really wasn't going to work, but you kind of held out a little bit of hope that something would come along that would cure her or put her in remission. But no, my whole class was just after we finished that, we were ooh, in tears. So we had to read a happy book after that. But yeah, that was the books that made me cry. The next one is a book that made you laugh. I thought To Kill a Mockingbird was not a yuck funny kind of book, you tell jokes out of it and giggle about it, but I thought the way that the author portrayed Scout's life and the people that she encountered around town and the personalities that she gave the people, I thought was hilarious. It was just such a snapshot of small town life that the personalities made me laugh. Now, of course, you have the other part of the book with the racism and the railroading of Tom because of the lies that the I can't remember the name, the Averys, I think, told on him, the girl that he raped her and all this kind of stuff. Tom Robinson, and he got put in jail, and eventually, spoiler alert, he was shot in jail, supposedly trying to escape. Yeah, right. Yeah, we don't believe that. But outside of that, because you have to take a book for what it is given to you, even though it was tragic in some ways, it also offered you a little slice of life in that southern town, and it made me laugh in some places because I thought it was well written. Um, a book you often quote. I really am more of a movie quote person than a book quote person, as you can probably see behind where this way. 101 greatest movie quotes. I'm not sure about great book quotes, but I'm really more of a movie quote person than a book quote person. Even though books do have some pretty good quotes, I can't really recall any right now, but they're there. They're there. A book that scared you. I tell you, Cujo scared me because I thought every single dog after that had rabies. Squirrels had rabies, raccoons had rabies. There were no bats around, but probably birds could probably give rabies to dogs. I know they can. But you start thinking about that. It's like, of all the things that Stephen King could to make horrific, why was it like a pet dog? Once again, these dogs get a bad rap in literature. They're dying, they're killing people, ripping out folks' throats. I mean, there was actually a movie where a dog was possessed by the devil. I think was it a German Shepherd or a Doberman? Because in the 70s, the Dobermans were evil at one point. Then German Shepherds were evil. Now Rottweilers were evil because, oh yeah, Rottweilers were in the what was that? The Damien, the Omen. So dogs, you guys, look, dogs, listen. You guys need to unionize and really work up your image in Hollywood and in literature, because you guys are getting a bad rap. Either you're getting killed in the book, or you're dying at the end of the book, okay, getting shot, protecting your mess, all that stuff, or you're evil and vicious and killing innocent women and children in cars because you don't bother to get vaccinated against rabies, okay? So, dogs of the world, unite, clean up your reputation in media. Because personally, I do not want to read another book where the dog dies at the end. I'm so tired of that. Anyway, Cujo was one of the books that scared me because it was such a normal, everyday thing taken to like extremes. And also Silence of the Lambs, because I think that was my first exposure. Well, not really my first exposure, because being a child of the 70s, you heard about Ted Bundy, the Executioner song, so you thought every person on the street, was a crazy killer. Then along comes Silence of the Lambs, I think a little later on in life. I think that came out in the 90s, and it turns out like your own doctor. People who were quote unquote educated were also bizarre and crazy killers. And also you could be kidnapped off the street for helping somebody put a sofa into a car. Like, it was just creepy, and it was weird, and there was a lot of forensic stuff that was just, and that's when I first got introduced to the FBI profiling and all that different kind of stuff. And that's a whole nother world of just, I don't really understand how those ladies and gentlemen actually deal with the depravity that they have to come in contact with. That is scary on a visceral human level, that people are out there actually like that, and that people have to deal with that. All right, a book you did not finish. I am going to say this, and this was like a huge book in the romance community that everybody, either you loved it or you hated it. It was 50 Shades of Grey. I decided to read it because I was like, oh wow, I want to see what the hype is all about. Apparently, this book was not written for me personally, or a person of my personality, or maybe my age, or maybe my outlook on life, but I thought it was silly. I got to the third chapter, and I'm not a big fan of first person, period. And I just thought that the main character was kind of stupid. And like I said, it's not, I'm not trying to down the book, because sometimes books are just not written for you. And this book was not written for me. It appealed to a lot of people. It just didn't appeal to me. That's not saying the book is good. The book is bad. I just didn't like it. It's like peanut butter. I just don't like it. Some people love peanut butter. I don't like it. And that's okay not to like a book. It doesn't necessarily mean the book is bad or good. Each book speaks differently to each reader. This book did not speak to me. American Gods was another book that I didn't finish, and this was perhaps a cultural issue. meaning that I read something that happened in the book and I felt that it was, how can I put this? It recalled racist stereotypes of black women from back in the day. And I decided that if this is in the book, I'm not going to finish reading the rest of it. Now, everybody says, oh, such a great book. It's so wonderful. And the miniseries is just wonderful. Like I said with 50 Shades of Grey, this book was not written for me because what was in the book and what I ran upon was not something that I wished to continue, that somebody would put this in the book. I did not wish to continue reading it. And like I said, once again, I'm going to say there are books for everybody out there. American Gods was not for me. The next one is a book you loved that was made into a movie you hated. I rarely hate movies, so this is kind of like an exaggeration. I thought The Lovely Bones could have been better as a screen adaptation. It was beautifully shot. The colors were beautiful. I think Peter Jackson was director. His depiction of heaven was great. Great. It was very beautifully done. It was very evocative. The imagery was just beautiful. The colors, the saturated colors, beautiful to look at. Not exactly following the deep themes and tenets of the novel. I understand. It's a movie. You can't do everything you want in a movie that is done in the book, but I think it could have been done a little bit better, especially the end. I just thought that, first of all, the CGI was like, really? Come on. And second of all, it's just like, uh, okay, this is what happens at the end. I think the family could have been focused more on how what they were going through with that devastating crime that basically ripped their family apart, and I don't think that was touched on enough in the movie. I think the emphasis was more on the girl and her time in heaven and her spirit guide and all whatever that was. I've only seen the movie once. Maybe I'll watch it again and have a different opinion of it, but I doubt it. And last but not least is a book that changed your life. And that would be Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. The scene that I remember most from that book, and I know that's really not the point of the video, but I cannot talk about this book without talking about the scene where Montag, the firefighter, goes to burn the woman's house. She's got stacks and stacks and stacks of old books. They have the fire hose, and of course they douse the books with kerosene. And I don't know whether he turns away. Like I said, it's been years since I've read the book. But he turns around and he sees the woman and he's like, come on, ma'am, you have to leave. You're going to light the house on fire. And she's basically like, no, no, no. And she sees that he has a match. She has a match and the striking plate for the match. And so I remember he said he got out of there because she was going to light that up with herself inside because she liked her books so much. She didn't want to live without them. Um, so that was why I like Fahrenheit 451, because many of the people in there had a great deep love of books. And I thought it was sad that Montag's wife was so immersed in the interactive well of whatever was on her TV screen that was projected onto the wall. And she had the shell in her ear where the people would talk and she would read her script and pretend like she was part of her TV family and all that stuff. I thought that was so strange. And I kind of felt sorry for him that he had a wife who was so disconnected from him. But anyway, he did come around at the end and became one of the talking books, which I thought was really cool. And it just, Fahrenheit 451 basically solidified my love for books, which is not really changing your life, but you know what? We're going to go with it. We're going to go with it. So there you go. That is the What Book Baby tag. Like I said, it was originated by the novel Nana. I'm going to put her channel in the description below. And thank you for sitting through my book ramblings. And like I said, Happy New Year. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye.